I've brought you a snack.
I'm excited. What snack did you bring today, Bryn?
They are super beans, gently pickled with chili and lime.
What?
Let me open this thing
Hold on.
real quick.
What?
Hold on.
It's
a salad topper and a healthy snack.
It's just beans? Brahmi lupini.
Brahmi lupini, yeah. Here,
Okay.
I'll hand these to you while I grab the other
Thanks.
ones.
With chopsticks, too, so our hands don't get all mussed
They
up.
look a little wet.
Oh, they look wet? Oh, they are kind of wet.
They're gently pickled. They're soupy beans.
Oh, okay.
For the girly pops.
This is a wet bean.
I also have sea salt and vinegar and garlic and rosemary.
Amazingly nutrient-dense, addictively delicious.
Okay, so you've got the chili and lime ones. How do you feel about them so far?
They are pickled. Very limey.
Ooh. The garlic is strong.
I don't know how to feel about these, if I'm being honest.
Here, try
They
these ones.
taste like a pickle, but it's a bean.
Yeah. They're just pickled beans.
Serving size is around 15 beans.
I've never seen a serving size measured in beans before.
Now you have. Welcome to episode 5 of Cult Flav is Going Off. I'm Sarah.
I'm Bryn.
This is Fry. For those of you listening, Fry is a dog.
Breed dog.
This week we are following up on our walk review with a little conversation around tradition, nostalgia, and how useful that really is.
We've got a couple questions about innovative methods and classic cookbooks, and then we're wrapping the whole thing up with a fun new game in this week's Absolutely Rank.
We have definitely practiced it, and we
It definitely works.
know it'll work.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. Should be fun.
But before we get into it, we'd like to thank our sponsors, which is you.
You.
Hey.
I just checked the number, and 92 of you have subscribed. That's up significantly from last week. Thank you all so much.
So much. Yeah.
Most of y'all have also changed the number in the box, which I'm so continuously impressed by. I really appreciate that. We're well on our way to 2% with less than 1% of the subs. Like,
Damn.
cruising.
Amazing.
Thank you all so much.
If you would like to join, head on over to cultflave.com/community. It's $20 a year.
A year, not a month.
A year.
That just helps
Pretty
us make
easy.
more of this stuff. We want to not only keep going at the current rate, which is really, that's what the goal is designed around, but we also want to speed up. We want to hire a producer. We want to just make more stuff. If you're listening to this right when it comes out, we released a walk review 3 days ago. That took like a very long period of time for both of us to get it out.
Multiple months, yeah.
And then like a week right at the end where we were only focusing on that. So getting a producer would definitely help us speed that kind of stuff up.
And enables, I think, you to work on the website a little bit more too, so that you're not pulled into like so many directions of helping me edit things or like reshoot things or.
Thank you all so much for the feedback on the site. We're working on it. I've spent the last couple of days working on a complete nav redesign. Like we kind of had it in mind last week, kind of had an idea of where we were heading, and now it's well underway. Nav has consistently been an issue with the way that we're rebuilding the site. It all started as a very simple blog that was like CMS backed, and now it is a whole social platform. And there are some growing pains, but we're getting there.
Yeah, guys, I've seen it. I've looked at it.
It looks kind of cool.
And
I'm very excited about it.
I think it's going to be a really cool update, actually.
Working on a bunch of features for members as well. So we'll get those ASAP.
ASAP, but we don't have a definite timeline yet. Hold on, we'll get there. We promise.
So as I was mentioning, the walk review that just came out, one of the things that kind of was stuck in my mind as we went through it was I got stuck on who should really be buying these.
Yeah.
Because
it took us a long time to write that review.
If you have experience, if you know how to cook with one, you already know who it's for. But if you're coming into it, maybe you haven't cooked a lot of Chinese food, maybe you haven't cooked a lot of Thai food, any of the cuisines that use a wok. And even if you are cooking those cuisines, it doesn't necessarily make the food better to cook it in a traditional or authentic way. You can cook a perfectly good curry or mapo tofu or whatever in a saute pan.
Yeah.
I have done so.
A Dutch oven
Right.
or 8-quart stock
Exactly.
pot. Any stock pot.
John had a really good point that if you're trying to learn from a recipe, the timings will be off. They'll be different.
You're saying if you're trying to learn from a recipe that was written for that
For a walk,
for
yeah.
a walk
Right.
specifically, your timings are going to be different.
But if you're not, if you have the context and are just willing to jump in, then maybe it's not for you anyway. So I kind of got stuck on this question, and the conclusion is really like authenticity or tradition or whatever you want to call it doesn't necessarily make something taste better.
Because everybody can taste the authenticity in a dish.
Well, people always talk about this like when they go to restaurants, like, oh, it's the most authentic Mexican place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. It's the most authentic Italian you're going to find in Mankato, Minnesota.
And it's just someone that went there on their like spring vacation or
Right.
something like that.
But you can't taste the authenticity?
So I think there is definitely inherent value if you have nostalgia for a thing, but that's really your nostalgia and not necessarily like where the tradition is rooted, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. Do you remember when we were reviewing the Tucci cookbook?
How could I forget?
The whole week that we were working out of that book, it just felt like we were not close enough to his family to be enjoying this book. It felt like it should have. We said, I think in the script, this book should have been a newsletter.
Yeah, this book should have been like a family newsletter.
A family newsletter, because that's what it felt like. It just felt like it was hard for us to actually enjoy it because it was so inside family, so like tied to a lot of family stories and a lot of tradition. And like, I'm sure that like for Tucci and his family, he really understood the importance of like why they made decisions
Right.
to, I don't know, cut off the ends of the steak to fit it in a pan. Like, I think that's a classic story too. Right?
The way I've heard it is like it's a pot roast, and
Right.
I always cut the ends off because that's what my mom did. But really, it was just like your mom's pan was too small for the
Right.
like full size one.
And nobody even bothered to check why
Right.
we cut the ends off. It felt a little bit like that.
They hold something very sacred, and so
Yeah.
they're unwilling to tweak it.
His timpano recipe,
Yeah.
like, is I think a perfect example of this. He talks it up the whole book, and so the whole week we were like, this is going to be our big showstopper piece, and I was pretty excited to try it. And what it is individual layers of salami, hard-boiled eggs, meatballs,
Yep.
ziti, cheese, and ragu. So these things are like piled on top in layers, like a lasagna.
Now imagine all of the pasta overcooked and all the meat dry.
Yeah,
And you have an idea of it.
Well, because then you pile it into like a Dutch oven, and this
Yeah.
Dutch oven is lined with pasta sheets, and then you fold those pasta sheets over, so it's basically like baked into this overstuffed pie, and then you cook it for like 3 hours in the oven, so everything is pretty dry.
It's very stodgy by the end.
Yeah, by the time it comes out, unless I just completely messed up.
There were no signals. He just said this amount of time
Yeah,
at this temperature.
Here it is. It's stuff like that where it's like, oh yeah, the author talks up this like great recipe that they have a lot of nostalgia for, and they hope that you'll enjoy it too, and like share it with your families, and then you try it, and you're like, dude, this is not, this is not.
Are we rolling? I don't trust your taste in food. Actually,
That is hard-boiled eggs and salami is a move.
I relate to that to some degree. Like, there's certain dishes that I have extreme nostalgia for, like my grandma's coffee cake. It's kind of a busted recipe, if I'm honest. Like, you reserve a good chunk of the dry mix for the topping, which includes things like straight up flour, and baking soda. You're really in it baking powder, but you're
So
really,
you're eating raw flour.
well, you put it on in the last 5 minutes, so it might get cooked enough.
Okay.
But it's like mixed with butter, and I don't think it's really that well cooked. But
Yeah.
this was also not a concern. I was eating cookie dough on the daily with her, so
Got it.
I wouldn't feed that to a friend.
Well, you fed it to me.
Yeah, but you were family.
Oh, so I get
You
it.
knew the broad.
You're family now, so enjoy
Right.
this busted
But also,
coffee
like,
cake.
it was the first dish that I made by myself ever. And so it has an
see.
importance to me. But I also, like, I understand that that's not something that you share for the flavor. It's like, here's a, like, moment or something that was important to me coming up.
Sure.
This is, like, I think I'm trying to connect with you over. But that's that should be reserved for other people. It shouldn't be like, this is a law now. Listen, a pesto must be made in a mortar and pestle with exactly like this amount of basil and pine nuts and only Italian olive oil. And you must get a piccolo crema on the way to this green goosh. And
This way to a green goose.
like, I get that viewpoint, and pesto is fine. I'm just going to say fine.
Yeah.
But like, you understand what the word spinach walnut pesto means. Breaking that tradition in this way is useful for language.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think it's wrong to call it a pesto, though a bunch of Italian chefs might strongly disagree. I don't want to eat that. It doesn't sound very good, but I get what they're saying.
Yeah.
You know? It
So
also
is the
fits
tradition just in a name?
sometimes,
Is that
not always.
the- is
Well,
that
in this
what we're
case, it was
getting
like
at?
cooking stir fry in a wok. There are some things that it is better at, like for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you look at something like mapo tofu, going back to that, perfectly capable of simmering in really anything. It's going to be fine. There are a couple steps that are like pretty fast that might be slightly slower, but it's not going to be a big deal because it's mostly a braise. You're braising tofu and usually pork or beef. The tradition isn't necessarily valuable here.
Right.
It's probably tradition because of what was available in a household that was making it, right? Or a restaurant. So in that case, like, it's
This is
very
how you
obvious to
end
break
up
it,
with-
but you don't necessarily know which things are for which reasons. So I think the doing the research approach definitely helps. Thinking about the cow soy recipe that we made, where we dove down like a million rabbit holes and saw like how people had consistently broken tradition in new and interesting ways to create their own traditions that are now like well loved. We heard from people who had been making Pakistani kausa for forever, or onno kauswe from Myanmar. It's a perfect example of how breaking tradition just generates new traditions, and that's, I would say, more valuable because you get all these like different twists that teach you stuff about how the pieces fit together.
I think the nice thing about traditions changing over time too is that it's never like a 180. It's always like a slight tweak that then just like adjusts it slowly over and over and over.
Sometimes, unless you're fixing lasagna like I did.
Unless you're fixing lasagna like you did. Hold on. I just want to go back really quickly to
You can't
like-
leave me hanging on I fixed lasagna.
oh, sorry. Okay.
People are going to get so mad, but I guess now we're doing it.
Okay.
Hold on.
We'll come back
Hold
to the
on, nerds.
lasagna
We'll get
thing.
there.
So when we were talking about tradition being in a name, and like if you just change the name, will that change how people feel about
A
like,
rose by another name.
the tradition of it all? It reminds me of that menu item on Squirrel. They renamed it
The
like
milk jam,
milk jam,
which is just pudding.
and it's just pudding.
Yeah.
But they rebranded pudding
Yeah.
to milk jam, and now all of a sudden it's this
It's like a really cooked down pudding.
artisanal treat: milk cream, milk powder, tapioca starch, and then matcha powder. 'cause they
So-
have matcha.
Tapioca pudding.
It's pudding.
But it's milk
But
jam,
it's milk jam.
which
It's not pudding because pudding isn't sexy, but milk jam, that is sexy.
okay, but like pudding's good though.
Pudding's fucking great.
Milk jam makes it sound like mysterious, right? Like it's something that you have no idea what the fuck they mean.
But that's what I'm trying to say is they're trying to like, because who's going to buy pudding? Like most people
Right.
don't think pudding
Pudding.
and say
If you
like,
say I'm going to put matcha pudding on your toast, people
Yeah.
are like weird. I see.
that's fucking
Yeah.
weird. We need to call it something other than pudding
Right.
to get people interested in this. And I guess milk jam is enough of a differentiation.
Listen, I try matcha pudding.
Yeah, I would 100 just, but
If you said you were putting pudding on toast, I'd actually be more intrigued.
yeah, fuck yeah, I want to try that.
Pudding toast.
Pudding toast,
It sounds like something very British.
like French toast, but with pudding.
I got my pudding toast. I'm just gonna keep doing bad
that your
accents. Yeah. That's my little British boy.
Tangerine.
And you're Michael Caine?
And now I'm Michael Caine. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so fixing lasagna. Let's get back to that for a
Okay,
moment.
sorry.
You were talking about how things are usually small steps. This was like a big twist, but it actually went back to several traditions and like just changed them in form. Like it was trying to be more playful with it. So I wrote a recipe called Lil Lasagna X. It was actually the first one we ever published on our YouTube channel. It is taking the problem statement of lasagna is often just a bunch of the same texture and very dense,
Yeah, it's boring.
and trying
Boring.
to take all the classic flavors,
Right.
but kind of tweak them so that there's a lot of interest Just like you're getting different textures, different temperatures, you're getting different flavors at different times. Just not every bite is the same bite and the same density and the same like flavors. Understanding where the tradition came from gave me a lot of input into it. So it uses a salsa verde, which is actually very classic of several different like regional lasagnas. It's taking cues from Marcella Hazan's very classic bolognese sauce. The structure is basically just like a sped up version of hers. Instead of a bechamel, which I don't particularly like a bechamel. I grew up on like a ricotta mix. So we did ricotta and cream, whipped that in an ISI whipper. So you get like a really nice loose, airy texture. So it's not all dense. And it's also cold, which is really interesting. And then instead of boiling the lasagna, I fried it into little semolina crackers.
Yeah,
So
that took a long time to figure out too, because it was the how thick could the pasta be for it to actually like crack properly.
And in the video, I think it was too thick.
Yeah.
But it changes the whole thing while kind of admiring the tradition, but giving it I would say a more modern update. And like one of the big benefits is it only takes 2 hours from start to finish, where most lasagnas take much, much longer. So the longest thing is actually making the bolognese, and even that is like really quick. Things like that are really interesting and help move food forward. I'm not saying like my dish does, but like many of my favorite dishes are riffs like that. Like the Thai Caesar salad at Poltergeist was like so interesting. It took so many swings at different concepts that were all reminiscent of Caesar salad, but had different vibes to them. Our Thanksgiving ramen menu was very popular. I think that is something that is like a really compelling look at what makes Thanksgiving taste like Thanksgiving, even when it's in a different format.
Totally. We went to a restaurant recently where they did curry pan, but they put it in the shape of like an empanada.
Right.
Which is like really a really fun take on it.
So it was Japanese curry and cheese.
Yeah.
Inside like a short crust. It was delicious.
It was such a great idea. But that's the stuff that is exciting and fun, especially when it works.
I think a lot of the stuff used to be like, a lot of fusion used to be very corny. Here's a pizza taco. Like that's just a weird vibe, I think. But
who doesn't like taco pizza?
I think really looking at what the issues are within a dish, or like what can be improved, or what you specifically just want to improve or want the experience to be more like, is a really compelling way to approach these problems. And it makes writing the recipes much more fun.
Sometimes frustrating, especially if your theory doesn't work out the way that you're expecting it to. It can be a little bit frustrating, but there's usually a fun outcome that like derives from it. Like going back to the Tucci cookbook, there was a traditional flaky cake with mascarpone sauce.
That was delicious.
And I remember making that and not being particularly like blown away by the flavor as much as I was by the texture. And so I was like, I want to take that. I want to take that texture and I want to bring it into a birthday cake that I was trying to develop. And I think that's the fun part about like trying stuff out, is like you get inspired by these traditions or these like very authentic dishes, maybe not in the flavors, but sometimes even in the textures. And I think that's really fun to explore too.
I think the point, I guess, is like the ideas are really good and can be used in many different ways. It's just don't be beholden to the rules, so to speak, because they slow you down in like being creative.
Yeah, totally. You don't have to cook a recipe exactly as it's written. You can
shouldn't
play around a little bit if you want to. I understand too that there are a lot of people that like don't feel confident enough in the kitchen to deviate from a recipe. Believe me, I was there 2 years ago. But I think the more that you do it and the more
it was like 4 years ago.
Practice. Oh, that's being generous.
Sarah's a relatively new cook. I don't know if you all know that.
Yeah. If you say it's been 4 years, I believe you, because how does time?
I know you started cooking in 2021, but I feel like you very quickly accelerated. You started writing recipes before you like really dove in.
Yeah.
And so I think that, well, you started with like cookie recipes and stuff. And
because that was the thing I was most excited about.
I think understanding what you could change there really gave you a lot of tools to approach improvisation with savory.
I think, yeah, as you cook more, you become more confident and you can deviate from those recipes and figure out what flavors you really jive with. Jive. Jesus.
I mean,
how old am I?
Find your lime leaf.
Yeah, find your lime leaf. It's so good.
The tattoo you want to get tattooed all over your arm.
Yeah, find the flavor that you
Did I
want
say
to
the
have.
tattoo you want to get
Yeah,
tattooed all over?
find the flavor that you want to have tattooed all over your arm.
Ingredient is what I meant.
Where I got stuck a lot of the time when I was trying to learn how to cook was in following tradition.
Mm-hmm.
But
You felt like you were doing it wrong if you didn't follow tradition.
right. Yes. If it was this recipe that I was really excited about, and I felt like I misread something because the outcome just didn't live up to my expectation while I was reading about it or learning about it, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, totally.
And it's not necessarily the fault of the person that's writing the recipe, and it's not your fault either. It's just that maybe your tastes don't necessarily align with how they wrote the recipe.
We were talking about this in the Maddie Matheson review, like the
Yeah.
Joe Louis, like, okay, like maybe there's nostalgia for this factoring in that we just don't have.
Yeah.
We don't want to say it's bad. It's just like we don't have that nostalgia.
Right.
And I think that's like a really common thing when people are like, oh, my grandma made this for me for years. I'm making
Your
this special
coffee
for
cake.
you, whatever. Yeah. But
You were like, it's amazing, right? And I was like, it's good. It's fine. It's no my mom's blueberry cheesecake, but
all right, we need to talk about your mom's blueberry cheesecake. No, I'm just kidding. The thing I think I just want to get out there is like, one, you don't have to be beholden to this stuff. Like nothing is sacred in food at all. Traditions are only valuable as long as they're useful. There are many traditions that are net harmful and like shouldn't be followed, and I think we can all agree on that.
yeah.
But
Jell-O should just go.
it's the
away.
rules are there to be broken thing,
Yeah.
right? Like this very cliche and like a classic statement, but I don't know, especially in food, there's just no reason to be beholden to tradition in any real way.
I'm going to give you permission right now to break traditions. If you need it. You can come now. Break that tradition. If you don't like the way something tastes and you've never liked the way it tasted.
You don't owe it to anyone to do it the classic way.
Yeah. You can do it. Change it. Make it the way you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
And fuck them.
Food's only purposes are to feed you and taste good and look good in photos, make you float on smell lines toward the kitchen, and hold little babies in Ann Getty's books.
What? Oh, the Cabbage
What
Kids.
a throwback. I was really reaching there.
Talking about the Cabbage Kids.
Are they Cabbage Kids?
There's usually like a baby.
I thought it was like a baby in a watermelon or
it's
some shit.
usually
Or like in a
baby
pumpkin.
in like a cabbage or like a...
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ann Getty's shit. Man, the 90s were a wild
Wow.
time.
Was that the 90s?
Yeah, it has to have been. Now that's a tradition we can all agree that is
Yeah.
done.
I'm glad
We're over it.
I'm glad that's over.
Would you like to move on to some questions? Follow our own tradition.
Yeah, let's do some questionable content.
We have voicemails.
We got-
Y'all really, when we asked y'all to send voicemails, you really did. We had more than we could tackle in one episode, but we're taking a couple that are focused on, I guess, kind of innovation and tradition.
Let's listen to him.
Hey, Brendan, Sarah. This is Drew, longtime listener, first-time caller. We recently discovered mixing our organic peanut butter with a hand mixer to keep it from separating for long periods of time in the fridge. What is your only weird if it doesn't work thing in the kitchen? Thanks.
All right, I got one. I love talking about this. I could talk about this forever.
Oh, God, it's the fucking gloves.
It's the cheese gloves. Okay.
Okay, start by defining what cheese gloves are.
A few years ago, I was trying to learn how to make mozzarella.
You're not defining what cheese gloves are.
I'm getting there. You have to listen to the whole story.
There's a story?
Surprise. There's
Shit.
a story.
I love that.
I was trying to teach myself how to make mozzarella at home. And to make mozzarella, you need to be able to dunk your hands into 180-degree water. I couldn't keep my hands in that water long enough to do it. So I got these thick blue gloves for cleaning. They're technically cleaning gloves.
Wait, you were always using these gloves, right? Like you would scald your hand at 180 degrees.
Yeah. I was always using these gloves. But
Okay,
the
got
first
it.
time I did it,
You ma-
I tried to do it without the gloves.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it did not work well for me. Because they said
Eggs cook at 140.
Because they
like,
said the gloves were optional. Okay, so I was like, all right,
you,
I can.
you were
probably...
like pulling it out with something and then just like stretching the hot
Yes.
cheese. Like,
Oh God.
got it. I'm picturing it now. I thought you were keeping your hands under there. I was like, Sarah, that is hard boiling, Sarah.
No, I couldn't do it. So I got these gloves. They're just thick rubber gloves. I have found these things so fucking useful, not only for making cheese, which I don't do as much anymore, and I really want to get back into, but I open jars with these things because they have
They
like
are
a
very useful for that.
sticky rubber end.
They're like tacky.
I shred chicken. I've shredded goat meat. I've shredded roasts, pulled pork, like anything that's hot that you need to shred, pull out the cheese gloves, get in there. Mashed potatoes.
You did mashed potatoes with them, which was, it was very unhinged looking.
Instead of using our stand mixer, I just pull these things out and I just get my hands in there, and
We're a lumpy potato family, thank you.
it feels great to like to be able to get in there with your hands and like shred this meat or like mash these potatoes.
You also pulled pasta out of a boiling pot of
That's
water
true.
one time, and that was the most heroic thing I've ever seen. Just
It's
thrusting
only-
your fist in there and pulling out noodles.
Listen, it's only weird if it
It's like-
doesn't work. It works.
It was like you were catching fish out of a lake.
Yeah.
You're just like, "Rah!"
Maybe I would be more interested in touching fish if I had my cheese gloves on. I don't know.
So my first one, I got this from making udon noodles, but any really tough or low hydration dough, if it's annoying to knead with your hands, you can put it in a big Ziploc bag and step on it. So you just stomp on the dough. You'll get that gluten development.
That sounds really fun, actually.
Much more convenient. They make 6-gallon Ziploc bags that are pretty good for this. It's great. It's very convenient.
I bet it just feels very satisfying too.
It depends on the dough.
So we're looking for like
Listen,
stiffer
some of the doughs
dough?
are like therapeutic, like a stress ball. Some of them are like really gushy and just feel like, like that also sounded therapeutic. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. When Drew mentioned the hand blender thing,
Mm.
the other than my cheese gloves, the second thing I guess that came to mind was using a hand blender for mayo. Mayo's tricky because you need a very specific ratio of like egg to oil to
Water.
water.
You're trying to suspend the water in the oil.
Right.
That's the goal.
So if
but
you
you
have
need enough
too much-
water.
Yeah. If you have too much water, it won't come together.
And the egg's just the emulsifier and some water content.
But when it works, it's so satisfying to
Mm-hmm.
just like dump everything into a container, stick the hand blender in, blitz it, and just watch it all like just come together so fast. You've got mayo.
You've got mayo. You've got mayo. I don't know how to do that voice.
I think you did a pretty good job.
I think it's very distorted in my head. Okay, my last one.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm cooking something very delicate, so hollandaise sauce is probably the most common thing I do with it, which is not very often. Tempering chocolate sometimes, if I can't pull off a double boil or something like that. I will check the temperature with the bottom, with the bottom of the pan on my hand. So I'll just tap my hand on the bottom of the pan, because if it's below the temperature that my hand can handle, it's in the range that I can work with. So it's a very useful trick. Egg is going to cook above, it's 120 to 140, depending on the part of the egg. So 120 is what's comfortable for your hand.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep it just around that 120. So if I get slightly over that, I'm moving it off the heat, and then check again in a couple seconds, then go back on the heat if it's below that temp.
Or you could just get a double boiler.
Listen, sometimes you're in an environment where you don't have the things you need.
Very true. Touche, Bren. Touche. You got me.
Why are you saying it like that?
I don't know what
I
else.
feel like you got me, and I don't know why. I said something rational. Why have I been got?
It's just my personal brand of manipulation, Bren.
Yeah, I'm being gaslighted.
Sorry. The pan thing is interesting. I've never done that before. But I usually just use a thermometer. Yeah.
It's a very easy trick, though. It's much faster than using a thermometer. Because by the time a thermometer comes up, you're going to be past that
Over.
temp already. So just pulling it off the heat, tap, move off the heat, move on the heat, move off the heat, move on the heat. Works really well for hollandaise. Kenji, who I stole that mayo blender trick from. What a fucking sentence.
Yeah.
Damn. English, huh?
Yeah, English is fun.
He does the same thing for hollandaise. He makes it in a blender, which makes it a gel. Hollandaise is a foam, not a gel.
Yeah.
If you want it to be good. The trick is to whisk it in a pan as you're heating it on and off, on and off, on and off. And so it just makes it a much more delicate, velvety sauce, instead of something that's kind of you know the
Gloopy?
sound it makes, right?
Yeah. No, Bryn. Disgusting.
How else do you do it?
Ugh. I'm not going to make
How do you describe that texture?
gross mouth noises.
Gloopy?
Yeah, like gloopy.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You want velvety and soft.
All right. Next question.
Next question.
Let's do it.
With that gloopy sound, it's time for a different question.
That was a good question, though, Drew. Thank you for asking that one. That was fun.
Yeah, thank you, Drew.
Hey, this is Zach, longtime watcher, first time caller, loving the long form recipe or cookbook reviews. My question is about the cookbook reviews. First, do you have some like all time favorite foundational cookbooks that you would recommend to people? And I guess a follow up on that is, do you have any plans on reviewing cookbooks that are not fresh and new cookbooks, like maybe some classics on the channel? 'Cause that's something I think I'd love to see. Keep up the good work. Thanks. Bye.
Oh, thank you, Zach.
I want to start with that last note.
Okay.
Would we do classic cookbooks on the channel? We're actually going to move further away from that towards new stuff.
Yeah.
Part of this is to do with the Flavies and like reviewing stuff that's new for the sake of like talking about new things at the end of the year, because I think that's actually really interesting. You see this in like every other piece of media. I just think that there's not really one of those for cookbooks, cookware, that kind of thing.
I think a lot of that is because there are so many cookbooks that are coming out right now, just in general.
We need to have
like,
Ken and Michelle from Now Serving on so we can talk about that.
Yeah, that it's like, it's hard to stay on top of how many cookbooks are coming out that are new. And I just feel like it's piling up and piling up and piling up. And so...
Literally, because we buy like hundreds of dollars of cookbooks every month.
Yeah.
Just to evaluate them for this.
But yeah, we're trying to stay on top of like the newer stuff because there's so many interesting cookbooks that are coming out right now.
The other piece is that other channels are making those classic cookbook not reviews, but they're working through them already.
Exactly. There are so many other people that have done these classic cookbooks.
Everything from Sandwiches of History to Anti-Chef. He does a lot of like Jamie and Julia type stuff.
Yeah.
Julie and Julia stuff. He calls it Jamie and Julia, sorry.
The very first cookbook that I reviewed for this project was An Invitation to Indian Cooking by Madhur Jaffrey. And I really, really enjoyed cooking out of that cookbook. But because it was published in the 70s, it felt like it was just a little bit out of touch with where I wanted to be in terms of like what I wanted to learn in cooking. So that's another reason why we don't really go back to a lot of the older cookbooks. It's like we want to get excited about the food in a lot of these books. And most of them we've cooked variations of, or at least Bryn has cooked variations of them.
Yeah, I think with the older cookbooks, a lot of stuff that we would tend towards are almost for the bit. Like you see a lot of really like 70s ass dishes in many of these cookbooks where it's like, okay, yes, it'd be kind of funny to do something with Jell-O in it, you know? Yeah. I mean, terrines are still a thing, but...
Coq au vin,
perfect example. It's not bad, but it's very like 70s.
And there's nothing wrong with that. God, we're kind of coming back into like tradition.
Yeah.
And to say like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, I don't know.
It's not what we want to be doing.
Yeah, we're just not as excited to cook those foods right now as maybe that's not to say that we won't ever be excited to cook these foods. Just right now, that's
Stand your ground, Sarah. You got this.
It's just not where we're at right now. Okay, Zach.
Why you gotta come after her like that, Zach? We trusted you.
Okay, but some foundational cookbooks. Going back to the first part of that question, we do have a couple of foundational cookbooks.
You're looking at me. Can I go first?
Yeah, I was gonna throw it to you, Bryn.
Sick. The one that came to my mind first was Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast by Ken Forkish, which is a bread making book that teaches you a lot of. It's mostly not sourdough stuff, but it is like.
Fermenty.
It's definitely ferments. Like there's Polish and Biga, which are different like day or two long ferment styles. It taught me how to make really good pizza dough. It taught me how to make really good like basic rustic breads. It's very approachable. It sounds very technical at first. Like he talks a lot about dough temperature and like you need a couple pieces of equipment to do it the way that he does. But it's really, really great. And like I feel like I have a very clear understanding of how bread works across the board just from that. So, like, I don't bake bread much at all. I've written a couple of bread recipes, though, because of this. I just, like, had a much deeper understanding after reading it. So, and I only made a few of the recipes, like 6, 8, somewhere in there.
Yeah. The pizza dough is a very good place.
There's
if you're
two
looking for a
pizza
place
doughs.
to start.
There's, like, a same-day pizza dough, and there's, like, a weekend-long pizza dough. And, like, seeing the difference between them, like, really helps you understand the mechanics going on. Same thing with like the various breads. It was like, here's a day-long one and here's a week-long one, which is really cool.
The first one that comes to mind for me as a foundational book is Start Here, but that's mostly because we just recently reviewed that book in 2024. It's by Sola El Whaley. Crash cooking course is the way she describes it. And I honestly think that's kind of how I would describe it too. It's like a college level cooking 101 course.
I think she said she was trying to do culinary school for people who don't go to culinary school.
Yeah, right.
Which makes a lot of sense because don't go to culinary school.
But it reads like that too. It's a mildly technical book with a ton of photos. I love that she's got so many photos in it for like every step of the process so you can really see what something is supposed to look like every step of the way.
Yeah.
And kind of touches on like flavor pairings and like the histories of things and why things work the way they do.
It's like just enough science, I feel like.
Yeah, not too much science. She says to start like from the first chapter and work your way through it. I kind of work out of the
menu at the
assumption
back?
I kind of work out of the assumption that I'm going to start with something that gets me excited about the book. And to me, the thing that I think is the most exciting about the book are the desserts. I also think that she just does a really good job with desserts.
Yeah. Every dessert we tried was incredible.
So if I was going to recommend a place to start Here, it would be in her dessert section of that
Do you have
book.
a particular dessert?
I mean, if you want to go really hard, the pavlova. If you want to go a little less hard, then the toffee popcorn was
Really?
good.
The toffee popcorn was the easy one for you? You yelled, I hate this while making it.
I did hate it.
Mahalabia.
Mahalabia, also a very good recipe.
It's like a yogurt with like a fruit curd. It's so good. Other ones, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat is good. I would listen to it as an audiobook because I think the meat of that book is in the prose rather than in the recipes. I listen to it as an audiobook. The only thing you have to be prepared for is hearing the phrase cooking is like jazz 1,000 times.
Yeah,
I think that's the only weakness of the book. It really changed the way I look at using salt. I think the fat and acid chapters weren't as meaningful for me. That's the one that stuck with me. I still remember a lot of details about it to this day. So you could certainly start there. Salt is the first chapter. So, I mean, you can find out if you like it in the first fourth.
Hey. And then I think the only other foundational cookbook that we would recommend is All Under Heaven. It's a Chinese.
One of my favorite books.
Yeah, it's a Chinese cookbook.
It dives into like the dozens of cuisines in China. A lot of it is like traditional dishes, but it has these beautiful drawings of these really complex techniques. Not always complex, but like certainly unapparent techniques to Western cooks. I mean, it's just so lovingly written, and it talks about like why each region has developed its own cuisine, like what the economic conditions are, how their farming developed, what kind of like environmental conditions they have that produce these ingredients. And I think that's so, so cool. Flavorful Origins on Netflix is actually very similar to it. I would definitely check that out. And if you like the vibe of that, it's going to be a great pull.
Thanks, Zach. That was
Yeah, thank you. Great question.
Another fun question.
A lot of room for detail.
So much room. I love it. If you have a question that you want us to answer on the show, you can call us and leave us a voicemail. We will not pick it up. You will go straight to voicemail at 424-419-3528. That's 424-419-FLAV.
Because I could only get that last 4 letters in.
Yep.
I was like, Sarah, do I pick Colt or Flav? You get one or the other.
Definitely Flav. Or if you don't feel like leaving us a voicemail, you can always head over to our Going Off channel on our website.
Cultflav.com/community.
And leave us a message there at cultflave.com/community.
But also the rest of the community is there and they can help you too. But the voicemails are fun. Okay. Sarah, I had an idea for Absolutely Rank this week based on our topic.
Yep.
I like to try and connect it all together. We've written a few pretty out there recipes. Lil Zanya X being a perfect example. Our Thanksgiving ramen recipes. I wanted to, make it more of a game-ish where maybe a challenge where each of us bring a dish that we think needs a facelift. 3 of them, actually. Okay. Classic dishes you think need a facelift or like an update.
Okay.
And then the other person gets a couple minutes to figure out what they would do to it, and then they have to present that to the class.
Okay. Is this like any region?
It doesn't matter. It's like a dish.
A dish from anywhere.
Yeah.
Any dish.
Yeah, I'll go first as an example.
That we think
Coq au vin. Needs an update.
Okay, coq au vin needs an update. Is that one of yours?
That's one of mine.
Okay, so what am I supposed to do?
Coq au vin, you know it well. Chicken, red wine,
Yep.
aromatics. It's a little bit shreddy. It's a little bit tender. And it's mostly savory with a little bit of acid. Take those components. How would you remake it?
Fried chicken.
Fried chicken's a great start, but you gotta bring in the wine and everything else.
Oh, just have the wine on the side.
It's just a glass of wine and a fried chicken. I mean, I love you so much. That is truly perfect in a way. I do want you to give it a couple minutes.
Okay.
I am in love with that solution though.
I have to look into the ingredients.
Yeah, take some time. Actually, I think I like the first answer. Never mind. Just kidding. What you got?
Great.
Okay.
So what I'm thinking is
Yeah.
fried chicken
Yep.
for the coq au vin. The dredge is going to be a wet-ish dredge. We're going to use, it's like mushroom powder is going to be in there.
Okay.
Garlic powder is going to be in there.
Okay.
Onion powder maybe, because like
Sure.
there's usually
Yeah.
a lot of onions.
Uh-huh.
Do I take the beef stock and put that in the dredge somehow? Because that would be kind of interesting.
I think that's
Flour.
well. Think about where the value of beef stock is, and it's in the collagen, like the gelatin.
Sure. Okay, so my other option here. Okay, so that's going to be the main ingredients for the
Incredible.
dry components of the dredge. And then I think the actual dredge itself is going to be a very simple egg.
So
that
you're
sound
gonna the wet dredge is just egg,
Yeah.
and then it's flour
dry.
with those other components in it.
The dry dredge is going to
Yeah.
be where the magic's
Great.
at with like, and maybe some pepper in there
I mean,
and salt.
most coq au vin are flour thickened anyway, so like this,
Right.
everything is kind of coming together. Yes,
Right.
great, love it.
And then
And then,
on the side of that, we're going to have a dipping sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm torn between making that dipping sauce like a beef stock thickened dipping sauce
Like
or
reduction?
making it like a wine. Whoa. It could be a beef and wine reduced dipping sauce.
yeah, that sounds phenomenal.
And there's your coq au vin.
That you're very good at this game. That was so much better than what I was expecting. Not like from you, but like you've raised the bar.
Oh, good.
That was right from the first thing we were like fried chicken and a glass of wine. I was
I mean,
sold.
absolutely glass of wine
Right.
on the side too, but
It's so good.
you could have
it's
the
so
dipping
good.
sauce. I was thinking you could either have the dipping sauce be like a mushroom and beef stock dipping sauce, or you could have like a red wine dipping sauce, which would also be very good.
The only thing that I was thinking differently, not a beef and red wine like reduction, like that's like a hot sauce.
Yeah.
That's gonna be very savory.
Yeah.
I was thinking gastrique.
Oh, gastrique would be good too.
Yeah, like a red wine gastrique would be killer. But the putting all the dried components in the dredge, genius. I love it so much. You're better at this than I was.
Bryn's like, oh, now I want to make that.
Oh, that sounds so good.
Does sound good. I don't know. Somebody try it. Please, somebody try to make
Who's
that.
a Coco we can name things after? Conan O'Brien? Coco Brand?
So I get to ask you one.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's one that drives me absolutely crazy.
Okay.
Fettuccine Alfredo. How would you make it better?
First, you throw it in the garbage,
Yeah. Right.
and then you make something else instead.
Yeah. This one might be a little bit of a challenge.
No, I think I actually have. I had ideas right out the jump, actually.
Okay.
Hilariously. I'm going for maximum texture. Because otherwise,
needs.
what the fuck is the point?
Yeah.
In like the triple butter, like original thing, he's just adding a ton of butter to it. I think I'm gonna go for 3 different versions of the sauce. So you got the classic one. It's kind of heavy, hot. Then take the Parmesan to a crisp.
Okay.
My understanding is that most fettuccine Alfredo consumption is American, and the big difference is cream. So I'm thinking do a like whip of some kind on top, something like a cold Parmesan foam, something like that would be fun. Foams are so like corny as
so
a
corny.
thing,
Wow, Bryn.
but all I want to do is reduce density in this dish because
Next, you're going to create balloons. Okay, anyway, I'm sorry.
no, it's good. It's a good Mike Bigelow joke. I get it, but I think having different texture is going to be the biggest differentiator. And then the last thing I would try and do is probably pull in some acid component.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking if I can pull something out of one of those ingredients, like a whey or something like that, especially a particularly like
Thinking like lactic.
acidic one. Yeah, lactic acid could be really great just in the sauce directly. But I don't want to loosen it too much with water. So that's the other thing I'm struggling with. So maybe it's a lactic foam. That could be a thing that would like brighten the whole thing. So I don't want to move too far away from like the classic ingredients, but I want to like give it a little more life. My first thought was like fry the noodles like cow soy.
Okay.
But then how the fuck
Okay.
do you eat it?
Yeah, how do you eat it at that point,
Right.
right? At that point, it's kind of like a snack, which, to be fair, would not be the worst.
Snaccaccini Alfredo.
Yeah,
Not like,
Could be
put the
like-
cheese in the pasta, fry it up, call
Right.
it a day.
exactly. It could be.
Like I said, you're too good at this.
I just like fried food, I think.
Snaccaccini Alfredo it is. That's
Snaccaccini
genius. Fry it around a stick so little
Dude,
curlies.
exactly. That's what
Yeah.
I was thinking too. Yes.
God damn it,
You could
Sarah.
wrap it. Oh.
Have
that'd
I
be-
ever told you you're my hero?
That'd be very tasty.
Everything I
actually.
aspire to be. Okay, Sarah, I have a second dish for you. It's one that you like quite a bit.
Okay.
And that's part of why I thought it would be perfect for you. Saag paneer. Definitely a classic. Spinach, paneer. I know you love playing with cheese. That's part of why I wanted to
Yeah,
put it in
yeah.
here. But also a creamy spinach gravy. I think we can do better than that.
All right. Oh, fuck. I think I got it.
Shit. You're so Ugh. I was like, I was at the point where I was like, I need foam. I need a Parmesan crisp,
what
which
is
is the
up
most
with the
generic
foam
bullshit.
And the Parmesan crisp.
You're so right. It should just be in the pasta. God damn it. Butter powder on the outside.
Yeah.
We have to make this.
Incredible. It'd be so good.
You're such a dick.
I'm not a dick. I'm just good at this.
Yeah, you are.
Okay. I want to take the majority of the flavors that we have in saag paneer, kind of keep them very similar, maybe reduce it a little bit more so that it's a little drier, and I want to put that in a short crust so that it's like a
Oh,
a hot pocket
it's
situation.
a spanakopita. Shit.
Shove it in a short crust and then have raita on the side so you can like dunk it in the raita.
And it's usually served with naan. Like, this
And-
makes sense.
Right. Like, just put it all in one.
This is distressing.
Put it all in one thing. Pocket saag paneer.
I just want to, for those of you at home, Sarah is a don't put me on the spot type of person. I want to have a plan for everything. And yet she is nailing this. It's frustrating on a deeply personal level. Not for like competitiveness, but like, shit, you've been hiding your bush under a ladle.
Yeah.
These are all good recipe ideas.
Are you ready for yours?
Yeah.
Okay. I need help with just like a Sunday roast.
Sunday roast. Like,
yes. This
we're
is like
talking-
a low and slow
can, okay.
carrots.
Are we
onions.
talking like the beef bourguignon derivative?
Yes, beef bourguignon derivative. Correct. Yes.
So we're talking carrots, maybe potatoes, mushrooms, beef,
Stock.
wine,
Yep.
like, yeah, beef stock. Yep, that's what I meant. Yep.
Braised as shit. It's
chuck-
usually
chuck-
chuck
yeah.
chuck roast. Let's level that up a little bit.
Okay, I've got an idea. Red wine braised beef, for sure.
Yep.
That's classic beef bourguignon. That's the bourguignon and the boeuf. But I'm going to merge the starches together. So we're going to make pav bhaji. Have you had pav bhaji? It's an Indian potato roll, common in street foods.
Okay. Yep.
The filling for that is usually a mix of, well, in my experience, beef, sometimes eggplant, I think, and a bunch of vegetables.
Okay.
So we're getting into kind of sloppy Joe territory here.
Okay.
Are you sold yet?
I'm in it. I'm in it.
It's tight, but you could definitely make all the flavors come through.
So you want it to be the stuff on the side, or you want the stuff to be like inside of the rolls? On the side.
You usually eat it inside the roll like a sloppy Joe.
Yeah,
is my
okay.
understanding. So you're looking at traditionally potatoes, peas, cauliflower, carrots, things like that. But if you replace that with a beef and red wine braised sauce and like chopped beef essentially, with all those classic ingredients, I think you end up with something that is very reminiscent of the original, but in a fun new form. And it's a much less, I guess, serious.
Ooh, yeah.
It's more weekday than
Okay.
like weekend. Does that make
Okay.
sense? So less
But also
less of a
still-
Sunday roast, more of a Tuesday roast.
Okay. But also still something that you could maybe serve on a Sunday.
Totally. All right. My last one for you, Sarah. A favorite of ours. Ropa Vieja. Cuban dish.
Okay.
Means old clothes,
Yeah.
but it's referring to the shreddy texture of the beef. Tomatoes, bell peppers, onions. My favorite components are the olives and the vinegar.
Yep.
Usually Spanish olives and vinegar. So it's like very briny, very acidic. It's white vinegar. It tastes so fucking good. Again, chuck
it's
roast.
Usually, yeah. But it's usually just like on the side with like rice. So it's like
Rice and beans.
a scoop of this
And,
and then rice
maduros.
and beans.
Yeah. So plantains.
I think I have it.
Already? God damn it.
So the first thing that comes to mind is to turn it into a fried rice.
Ooh. Okay.
A ropa vieja fried rice situation. Definitely include the egg in it. But also,
Do you think the tomatoes throw things off?
I don't think so. Because like tomato and egg is like a very popular combination.
Right?
So,
Classic Chinese
yeah.
breakfast. Okay, what's your last
Are
one
you
for me?
ready for your
Yeah.
last one? Okay. Can you zhuzh up French onion soup?
Yes. And I'm done. I've got it. I actually feel like this is my magnum opus.
This is oh, I'm glad we could leave on a high note.
Sarah, do you know where lilies grow?
Okay, Bryn.
Are we there? Are you together with me now?
Where are you?
Muddy water.
Muddy water?
Muddy water.
Okay.
Dark. Brown. Almost like beef stock.
Okay.
We're reversing the situation. You got broth. The onion's on top. It's a blooming onion.
Where's the bread?
Nowhere to be seen. You've got a cheese dip for the blooming onion. And a lovely broth to go with it.
Like a sipping broth.
It's a
with
beefy lotus.
It's a beefy lotus.
And this isn't just any blooming onion. This is Outback Steakhouse blooming onion. You have to go get it there first, and then you put it on top of
I'm gonna bring it back home.
straight out the store box bone broth. This is a weeknight meal.
Bryn, actually, I think this might actually be your magnum opus.
I know.
It doesn't get any better than the Outback Steakhouse bloomin' onion, so I think we just call it. I don't think you can make it more perfect.
I've solved it.
Take that, French onion soup.
Bitch. Pulled one out, finally. Sloppy Joe.
Sloppy Joe, what were you thinking?
I mean,
Fucking
Pav Baji. Pav Bougie.
and your foams
My
over here.
foams. Oh, actually, you know what?
Trying to get too fancy.
It's not a cheese dipping sauce. It is. There are bread and cheese components in it. It's pão de queijo, the Brazilian cheese bread that is in little cubes.
Oh shit.
Soaking up the broth. It is tapioca based, I believe.
Okay.
So it's like a very interesting, like chewy texture,
Yeah.
which I think would be more compelling. Because then you got crispy, and you got brothy. I actually, like, now that I think about it, I kind of want it to be more like a common guy where you have like the sipping broth that's separate from the rest of it. But
Alright.
for the visual,
Yeah.
the onion has to be on top, I think.
For sure.
I think it's just the world's largest plate
Yep.
It's a plate.
With
It's
a
a
bloomin'
plate.
onion.
with just broth and then one blooming onion in the middle.
It's never gonna float.
It's floating around.
It's never gonna float.
Listen,
it's way too heavy.
In my perfect world, it does.
You'd have to like
It's actually a bunch of tiny powdered queijo underneath it to make it look like it's floating.
cool.
Cool. So
That was fun.
So now that we've solved
I think
every
the
dish,
bloomin' onion is actually the best idea of the night.
no. Let's just say we started on a high note and ended on a high note.
Yeah.
Everything in between was fine.
He ended on a high note with the bloomin'
I actually do want to make several of these recipes, though. I'm actually inspired, and that's not what I intended for this to be.
Good.
This is your problem now.
No, it's not my problem. It's like,
It's about to be.
Bitch, you're making this shit with me.
Those are your words, not mine. But that, I think, brings us to a close because the pizza place we're going to go to is about to close.
Yes.
So,
hey, you know what? If anybody also wants to try making these recipes, we have a way for you to post them over at cultflav.com.
I fixed the recipe
Or
editor
if you
last
have
week.
other recipes that you want to post somewhere.
We had a few people post new recipes, and the new homepage is going to display them much better than the current one. So I'm very excited for that. But thank you all for hanging out with us, as always. Thank you to Zach and Drew for leaving questions for us. If you've got a question yourself, 424-419-3528, or you can post it in the cultflave.com/community going off channel.
Yeah. Do you want to eat some food?
Yes, let's go eat some food.
Yes, let's go eat some food. Indeed. Fry, do you want to eat some
Did
food?
you answer your own question, you pervert?